I am one very happy boy. Now, I've just received my delivery. I've been waiting for a couple of days. This is 25, 2.5 meter lengths of ATL composites, composite angle. It's a life-changing product, and it forms the basis of my entire process of gluing this deck and hull together. It is certainly going to save me months of tabbing underneath areas that I simply can't get to. And basically I ran out the other day, and I've been surviving on the last 50 lengths that I bought 2 years ago to do all the flooring and everything, and the last few remnants got used up the other day, so 25 lengths. Now, I've been a big fan of making absolutely every component of this boat myself as much as possible, and this composite angle I'm not prepared to compromise. This is actually an engineered material that is done and ready to use, and basically if I can make an order and save myself a month of laminating, then that's what I'm going to do. This basically is 25 full lengths, and I should be able to do the whole job with this. I hope I don't have to order any more, but you know, to be honest, it is brilliant stuff. Now that the deck's positioned down on the hull, and I've actually got it bolted all the way around, so I know it's in exactly the right position, first thing I need to do is go through the whole boat and physically mark where those bulkheads intersect with the deck. It's so important because I've got to now jack this back up again 50 centimeters back to where I originally had it, just so I've got access into those forward compartments to make sure that I've got all of the surfaces prepared, and that's another good reason why I've peel plied every single surface. It's going to take minimal preparation before joining this hull and this deck. Now, the other problem I have is there's a lot of areas that I simply can't get to once that deck lowers, particularly up in the front hatches. I'll just show you those now. They are around about 1.5 feet deep, and I am not going to be able to get into any of those compartments. I can certainly get in, but whether I can do some work in there is a matter of conjecture. So I've had to come up with another way of joining the hull and the deck together, only in those areas. Most of the other areas I can actually get to. Down the sides, all the bulkheads in all the bedrooms certainly are not a problem, but up in those forward compartments, and particularly because I'm going to be lifting this back up again, I want this deck to settle back down in exactly the same position it's in now. Right, I've come up with a solution. It involves my old friend, the composite angle. This comes from ATL Composites up in Queensland. Now, this isn't a paid promotion, but I've got to say this stuff has been life-changing. I've actually been a big exponent of this product, and I've used it all the way under the flooring, and certainly tabbing with bulkheads where I certainly can't reach them. It's enabled me to do stuff that would have taken me days and months, head first down in hatches and tabbing underneath the floors. I was able to simply epoxy this to the bulkheads and the floor substrates and glue them down. I'm going to use this to complete the deck and the hull joint in areas that aren't going to be reached. Now imagine that is my bulkhead, and what I intend to do is create a 15 centimeter or 6-inch wide flange that can be fed with plexus or Techniglue epoxy. I'm not really sure what I'm going to join the hull and the deck with, probably plexus, but basically put the epoxy on there, and when the deck comes down on that, that'll give it basically the same strength as tabbing will. Now, this stuff has actually been proven to be as effective as tabbing, and wherever I can tab, I'm going to on top of this as well. The only thing with this stuff is it basically has to be put in place before I lift it up again. So I'm currently working up in the front hatches, and what I'm doing is I'm actually screwing this into the bulkhead. So I've got my bulkhead, and let's say the deck's sitting there right now. Now I want this deck to come down exactly the same place. I'm actually lifting the composite angle up to the level required, and that might be 5 millimeters above the bulkhead in certain places, and then I'll put a screw in here, a screw in here, and then when I lift the deck up, I'm going to then be able to go back, undo the screw, apply the epoxy, and put it back in exactly the same position. We're going to be putting all of these in prior to us dropping the deck all in one go. We'll have epoxy applied to all of these mated surfaces, and that will form the basis of my initial join to the hull and the deck. So what I'm doing is I'm actually measuring any area that's flat that I can put this composite angle in. Very important, I'm going to put a composite angle on this side, and then when I lift it up, I'll be able to get to the other side, and I'll put one on the other side, glue it in place. That'll give me that 15 centimetre wide bulkhead, and then ultimately I can tab all of this component here and make it all nice and smooth with the composite angle underneath. Right, so I'm only going to put it where I really want a perfect fit, and that's on the main bulkheads. And then when I lift this up, I've actually got it in the compartments on the other side, which is basically in those compartments you can see there. And obviously an area like this I can't put it because it's angled, but there I'll actually put it in oversized, and then I'll be able to trim it back, and then I'm going to tab over these to make these nice and smooth, like I've done with some of the internal robes over there, and that'll be beautiful. So after a long hiatus, someone's decided to show up for work. Where have you been?
Taking care of business. Whatever business has to be taken care of, I take care of it.
This bugger hasn't been here for ages. You know why? Because he got himself a job. I think Sue made him get some work. He bought one of those little mobile kangas, which is like a little portable bobcat.
Stand-on bobcat.
And a stand-on bobcat. And he's got himself too much work, and he's got the shits, haven't you?
Too much work.
Too much work. He's had enough.
And the wife won't do any more work, you see.
So he's lent me his biscuit jointer, which we're going to join all of these panels together for this this hard top that I'm going to fabricate here. And all of these panels here will all be biscuit joined together, and we're not going to glue them, we're not going to bolt them down, we're just going to lay them in place with the biscuit jointer, and hopefully that'll be enough. A couple of screws might be necessary, but we're not really sure about that yet. We've supported it, but Janet's come in as well. I got the whole team here today. All right, so
hang on.
all in place.
Look at that, that's not moving at all.
No, so the way I've set this up, I've got these large MDF panels, and they've got this beautiful glossy surface on it, which I've done a test piece. And I've just put a batten under here, and there's also a 90 by 35 batten under here, which is nice and solid now. So pretty much, and we've got a jack under the back. It's solid, but I don't intend to stand on this when I'm laminating it. I intend to have a scaffold or something over the top if I can. So what we're doing here, we're going to biscuit join every 30 millimeters or 300 millimeters, which is about the length of this. So I'm just going to put one right near the end here, one here.
Yeah, that's not going to flex. Look, in between there and there, you're not going to
it's already pretty good now, isn't it?
Back.
Well, that's a winner, John.
Won't go anywhere.
So glad you suggested that. I know it's only MDF and it's got no strength, but
still,
it's going to hold it in exactly the right place.
Together.
Yeah, brilliant. So yes, what a job. It's a bit of a process. This has been going on for a month or so, a couple of hours every week, just getting it all ready.
Stick it in the middle and you go both sides.
Thanks for that, John.
Biscuit away.
Brilliant.
Push it evenly. I think that's spot on.
Unless this comes down.
Probably does. That's where it's got to be. That's close enough. I can get it all together later on.
Oh yeah, you're right.
That's all right. is it. Unreal. So this gap here is going to be filled with a rounded scotia. I reckon that's it. Job done. Woo. Brilliant. I've got a bit of a job to do. It's late in the afternoon. I'll just wait until everyone's gone because this one's going to create a bit of noise, and yeah, it's not real pleasant when I'm grinding into raw fiberglass. I have some sugar scoop extensions. Now, it's going to take this boat out to 12.7 metres, which is exactly the length that I'm aiming for. It's a very, very nice length because it's not too big for a lot of marinas, and it's not quite 40 feet. It's sort of into that 41.5 to 42 foot mark, around the size of a 1260 Seawind, and I love that size. It's sort of spot on there. I have a lot of internal room, but one thing I have is the sugar scoop mold. I actually have the step mold. Now the problem with that is that this is not going to be suitable for what I intend to do with this particular extension. And the good thing is though, when I bought the molds, I actually received some extension molds, which are just splashes that were taken, or a couple of layers of glass that were taken off the last boat made, and it made for some really interesting extension. And it's going to be pretty straightforward how I'm going to go about doing this. Essentially, I have a mold that's going to stick to the outside of the boat here and extend right out to around about here. The bottom step's actually here. Now typically that is underwater, and I can see a couple of problems with that. Firstly, you've got a lot of marine growth is going to build up on this bottom step. I don't want that. If it's on a mooring, certainly you're going to get a lot of growth there, not particularly nice, and it also leads to the degradation of the surface. So we don't want to be having to scratch barnacles off the bottom step here. So I'm envisaging, and this is the way this is going to go, is that my bottom step is actually going to be here. This is the water line, which is on the chine here, which essentially is the base water line of this boat. And this would typically be the bottom step with the mold that I have. But I'm going to extend the bottom step, or sorry, the second bottom step, which is here, out to around about here, which gives me another 80 centimetres of length on the boat, and essentially a large dock-like swim platform on the back of both sides. Now the way I have to do that is use the mold that I have, but the first thing I have to do, I have to trim off this flange on the external side. I have both sides, by the way, and I'll show you both of those sort of pseudo molds, I call them. They're not real flash, but what it is going to do is give me an extension of the curve, which actually gives a more elongated curve, a little bit more modern shape, out to around about here, and then a flat section, which is my swim platform, which is great for getting on and off a tender. So this is the sugar scoop mold. Now this bottom step is the one that's going to disappear, and this one here will become my bottom step. Now I actually polished these up, and I've even damaged them a little bit there, so I'm going to have to do a little bit of restorative work before I can use these molds, but that's going to be a long way off because I don't really need this until it's quite towards the end. And as I start filming, it starts to rain, but down here I actually have an extension which came off the V1270, the Voyager V1270, and it's quite a substantial extension. I'll be able to bolt this or screw this to the side of the boat here and essentially use whatever is left over, or the remnant, which is going to be around about from here out to here. I'll have to re-glass that section and re-glass this, re-glass the bottom, and then here is the other side, which I'm just going to screw onto the boat and essentially use what's left as the basis for my extension. Now I have both sides, there's a port and starboard there, and I've also got the other side of this other one as well. So pretty fortunate to have these, and it really does make this boat really shine when it comes to usability, particularly down on the stern. So I'm pretty happy to have those. I'm going to get into it. I'm going to grind off this flange here so that I can simply just screw this straight into the side of the boat, and then I can repair that part later on. But yeah, let's get into it, eh?
So with the flange actually removed, you'll notice the thickness of my hull is around about 1 centimetre at the very end and the sugar scoop there. Now that actually gives me a really strong basis to extend these sugar scoops. Now that actually enabled me also to be able to just lay this splash mould, and I call it a splash mould because it's typical sort of a mould that would be made to fabricate something very quickly. And in fact, if you've got a finished product rather than modifying the mould, this is quite a simple way to extend or modify any boat for that matter, or any part for that matter. You just simply take a splash mould off your completed plug and go right ahead and can continue on. But this here actually fits exactly to the hull because it came off the original boat that was produced here. You'll notice these contours actually follow the chines and the hull itself, and getting it in place is a bit of a challenge because it is relatively flimsy, and on my own it sort of required 44 gallon drums and blocks of wood and clamps and the like to get it in place. You can see there I actually don't have to make too much of a part to actually increase this sugar scoop. You can see the sides there and the extension of that arc or the curve at the back of the sugar scoop is not that large. It will simply be mounted, polished up, sprayed with gel coat, and then first 3 or 4 layers put on with composite material, and then I'll work into the foam core and then ultimately tying it back to the boat itself. Now actually it required a little bit of work to remove the flange on the other side because the internal side has a slightly different shape, and in fact it has no arc there. There's no curvature at the back there. It will be exposed stairs, which will make getting on and off tenders nice and simple as well. And you'll notice also they're quite flimsy. So what I've done is I've actually put it in place here and just clamped it just to give myself a good idea as to how I'm going to go forward. It will require a lot of repairing to get this thing back together. There's a lot of areas I need to fill in and construct this thing and get the length exactly right to make sure that I'm dealing with a constant extension on both sides. And once done, it will give me a very, very large extension. There'll be 4 stairs down onto a large dock-like swing platform at the back with an enclosed ladder. By clamping it all together, it sort of gave me that good feel for how I was going to go forward. I've actually been pondering on this for a couple of months now, and I'm right at the point now I'm starting to think about how I'm going to continue this and make this part correct. And then I can go on to the other side once I've perfected this side. But yeah, for now it's a pretty good look and I'm pretty impressed with it, and I hope to see you guys next week.